try and cover, and I wasn't sure how much. I'm very conscious that you heard a lot, so I don't want to try and repeat anything. So I'm going to rattle through really some social media tools and some methods, and what I'm often aware of. And again, I'm going to go quite quickly because I'm going to assume people have got fairly good knowledge, but I'm going to try and say a little bit about the mechanics of social media campaigns. And if anything isn't clear or I'm talking in jargon, then just please ask. But I do find that everyone assumes that everyone can use tools now, and we don't always talk about the kind of steps and the backgrounds. I thought that might be quite helpful. But I was just going to do that through a few campaigns I've been doing, my own sort of story. As someone who's been involved in too many campaigns, my passion, you asked about passion at the beginning, is really tends to be around voiceless communities. So although I'm lucky, I've been to university, I've ended up with a great deal of sort of personal power, I suppose, in my own way. I'm conscious of communities all the time that are voiceless, and the effects that can have, and the problems that can bring to society as a whole. So most of the things that run through what I get involved in and what I sort of feel strongly about tends to be that, really. I started out thinking that the best way to get your voice heard was through mainstream media, really. And so I went into journalism very young, but I was always campaigning. My first campaign group was the Pottery Alliance, which had a great name and taught me that you always should have a catchy name as a starting point. If you don't have a catchy name that rhymes, nobody will know who you are. So that was the start. But the first thing that you can actually find, and this is on the web archive, was when I was a student newspaper editor.
Yeah, what's the name of the organisation?
Who I work for? Or,
yeah, the one you just mentioned.
Oh, the Potteries Defiance Alliance. We were protesting against the Criminal Justice Act in the 90s. So it was when I was very young. So we occupied for the first time, and I learned about marching, and I learned about all the basic skills and how to sort of speak in front of audiences and things like that. Although I was still very scared, and I only came forward for this because I was like, women should put themselves forward, so I thought I had to do that. I'm nervous. And what I want to say really about tools and online tools is that it really doesn't matter what you use. I'm going to say a few different ones, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the effectiveness of the different ones, but don't feel like there's a right tool online. The vital thing is who uses it. It's not a social media tool if nobody's on it. It's not social, and it's not. And like we heard earlier, the work isn't done just because you've got people. First of all, just because you built a website, a lot of people think that's it. That's the campaign. We're done. Next thing is getting people to visit. The next thing is getting a very clear call to action. And I think there is a lot of benefit in the small step, something that gets people involved, gets people feeling an ownership of the campaign, and then that has to lead to action, and that has to lead to connecting with the mainstream, whether that is through the media who do still hold a lot of power and influence, or whether that's through mass demonstrations, petitions, or influencing people in power. My first campaign that you find online was a very early online campaign. And I feel a bit mean about this now, because as I'm getting older and learning from more people, and learning that actually personal politics, I'm not sure I feel good about personal politics anymore, but this was a campaign about Margaret Hodge, who was the education minister while I was at University of London, and we started a campaign because she started saying quite derogatory things about students as a way of justifying the incoming of fees at that point. And it had all the features of a social media campaign. Social media didn't exist really as a thing, but we could email each other and we could get the word out to students. So we had a website and a very simple call to action. And that call to action was for people to send us their doctored images of Margaret Hodge. And students had access to Photoshop, and it was fun, and it was something that people could get involved in. So we got these pictures from all over the country. We had a petition as well, and really what we were trying to get across was that the sort of language about students had become disrespectful, and that using that to get fees in was wrong. And I don't know if it was effective, but I think it did empower a few more people and get them to feel they could be involved remotely. Given the time, I mean, this was 2002, it was very early. What you need in every campaign, and again, this is where we get to the mechanical bit, you kind of need a front end and then a back end. You need the back channel. You need to think about what it is that you are going to talk to each other. You can't, as most great organisers of good campaigns know, you can't do it all in public. You can't do it all in the open. So have a think about the two places where you're going to talk to each other. Facebook is just the most powerful place, I think, now for reaching local communities and for getting people to take a first step. That's where people, where huge proportions of people are now. It's unbeatable. I'm not a huge fan of the architecture of Facebook, but there's no better place for reaching mass numbers of people at the moment. And that has a back channel, so that has, and what I mean by that is just the possibility for people to communicate, ideally in groups. But email was the one that we were using right up until sort of Facebook emerged as such a powerful thing. So it doesn't need to be anything complicated or simple, you just have to be able to talk to each other. Internationally, email is still the best tool to be used, but you can also have things like Skype. And that allows you to kind of be doing some of the things that we've talked about today, which are helpful, the support and encouragement, and the kind of, when people are feeling down, they're getting a hard time out on the sort of open web, you can be sort of saying, actually, I still think you're doing a really good job. You know, just sending those quiet messages to people in the sort of private space is really helpful.
2 minutes.
2 minutes, oh no. So this is an online campaign. This was the local campaign I mentioned earlier called March on Stoke, and it does show that how rapidly things can move. It was a campaign that was really emerged in January, and by the end of February we had about 1,500 people on the streets of Stoke-on-Trent. Stoke-on-Trent is not a place where people protest. So we got our point across effectively. And then the final one I'll talk about is a campaign. This is a national one. And I'm only very much on the fringes of this, but again, it's a supportive role. It's a campaign that was created when people started basically getting concerned about the legacy of Thatcher dying. And it was fairly predictable that when Thatcher died, all the old splits emerged. So what they've created, and I do hope you'll go out and spread the word about this if you haven't already seen it, was a website called Don't Hate, Donate, and it was about trying to create an alternative to the real polarisation that the media are encouraging and that is within this issue naturally anyway, which was to say, okay, so a lot of us feel strongly about the legacy of Thatcher's power and about Thatcherism, but rather than just shouting at other people about it, they selected 8 causes that would allow people to actually just donate. And so if we can get, and I couldn't get up-to-date figures on how many people have visited the website, but in the first 24 hours after Thatcher's death, because it sounds a bit morbid, I was on this back channel for ages about this, but because they were ready and could get up and running straight away, they could immediately get it out there, and they got 26,000 hits on the website within the first 24 hours. So as opposed to the kind of the huge sort of massive rows that are just damaging, you've got something that could make a real difference to charities and keep the kind of legacy of you know what went on. So we've got some really good campaigns that people can support that probably wouldn't normally get support. Coal Industry Social Welfare Organisation, you know, if a lot of people contribute to those, it'll make a difference. And that's got all nearly there. That's got all the elements. So the elements are a simple single page which tells people clearly what you're doing, a link either via people sharing a link or via a hashtag, which is simply a hash and then a word which creates a link, and then everybody who's talking about that and then that links through to a call to action. So if you have those 3 things and then you follow it up with a way of channeling people's energies into something which they can actually help with and do, I think that creates steps towards empowerment. And I wanted to recommend a book. Can I just mention it?
Yes.
This saved me from worrying about the offline side, which I think you're covering more anyway. But this book has 192 methods of doing political defiance. So it's called From Dictatorship to Democracy. And I know we're in, we're in a lucky place. We're not in a place where we feel we're going to be threatened. Well, actually we are, but physically threatened. We're not in that sort of dictatorship. But a lot of us are in power situations that we feel are completely. And what you can do is dip into the index, and this is online as well. You can. It's the author's Jean Sharp, and I think the whole book might still be online. So it's getting circulated quietly for years and years. It's got 192 ways of doing different kinds of non-violent defiance. So if you're feeling like, oh God, we've marched ourselves too much, no one's listening, you can look up and you can go to something like haunting, which is a method where you're haunting. So you just turn up wherever that person is. You say nothing. I really like that. And the other one is what people have picked up on Thatcher's funeral. So we're not. So people will not be going and protesting. It's about turning your backs. And so it's everything. It's kind of collected now, all these different kinds of things from different non-violent movements. And it also helps you to understand the power dynamics. So it's a useful book. But those 192 ways are all online. You can Google them.
Great.
Thank you very much.